The sea was too quiet at 04:17 a.m. Beneath a sky still heavy with night, the waters of the Strait of Hormuz shimmered like black glass. Then, without warning, the silence shattered. The distant hum of engines rose into a thunderous roar, cutting through the stillness as shadows massive, metallic, unstoppable emerged on the horizon. Commander Daniel Hayes had been awake for 36 hours, standing on the deck of a U.S. naval destroyer. His eyes burned from fatigue, but he didn't dare blink. He had spent his entire life preparing for moments like this. Born in a small coastal town in California, he grew up watching ships disappear into the horizon, dreaming not of adventure, but of control. Control over chaos, over fear, over the unknown. Now, as the operation unfolded, he felt none of that control. "Sir, confirmation just came in," a young officer whispered, his voice tight. "We have full operational command of the strait." Hayes didn't respond immediately. His jaw tightened as he stared into the dark water, knowing what those words truly meant. The United States had just taken control of the most strategically vital oil passage on Earth. And across the water in Iran, everything was about to change. Thousands of miles away, in a dimly lit room in Tehran, Dr. Layla Farzan sat frozen in front of a flickering television screen. Layla wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a politician. She was a historian, someone who believed wars belonged to the past, buried beneath pages of textbooks and faded memories. Her father had lived through conflict. He used to tell her stories not of victory but of loss, of neighbors who vanished overnight, of cities that forgot how to breathe. And now, as breaking news banners flashed across the screen, she felt history clawing its way back into the present. U.S. forces have secured control over key maritime checkpoints in the Strait of Hormuz. Layla's hands trembled. Her younger brother, Reza, stood behind her, his voice barely steady. "Does this mean war?" She didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Back at sea, Hayes finally exhaled. "Open channel," he ordered. Static crackled. Then a voice, calm, distant, unmistakably tense, came through. An Iranian naval officer. The two men had never met, but in this moment they were bound together by something heavier than words. "You understand what you've done," the Iranian voice said quietly. Hayes hesitated. He thought about his wife, Emily, back home. "About the last message she sent, come back safe, that's all that matters, I understand," Hayes replied. "Do you?" There was a long silence, then the line went dead. Subplot 1 unfolded quietly in the background, far from war rooms and naval decks. In a crowded marketplace in Dubai, Ahmed Khan checked his phone for the 10th time in 5 minutes. He was a shipping coordinator, one of thousands whose livelihoods depended on the steady flow of oil and goods through the Strait of Hormuz. His business wasn't glamorous. He didn't command ships or shape policy, but he knew one thing better than anyone. When the strait stopped flowing, the world felt it. Prices were already spiking, contracts were collapsing, and his family, his wife, his 2 daughters depended on him keeping everything afloat. "Please, not this," he muttered under his breath, because for Ahmed, this wasn't geopolitics, this was survival. Back in Tehran, Layla made a decision. "I'm going to the university," she told Reza at a time like this. He asked, stunned. "Yes," she said firmly, "because if people don't understand what's happening, fear will decide everything." As she walked through the quiet streets, the city felt different. Heavier, like it was holding its breath. At the university, students gathered in clusters, their voices sharp with anxiety. Is this retaliation? Will there be sanctions, attacks? Are we safe? Layla stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "History doesn't repeat itself exactly," she said, "but it does rhyme, and right now we are at a turning point. What happens next depends on choices, not just by leaders, but by people." Her words didn't erase the fear, but they gave it shape, and sometimes that was enough. Out at sea, the tension reached a breaking point. Radar screens lit up. Sir, multiple vessels approaching from the north. Hayes' pulse surged. Identify. Unclear. Possibly Iranian patrol units. The crew moved with precision, but beneath their discipline was something raw. Something human. Fear. Hold position, Hayes ordered. Every instinct told him to prepare for the worst, but another voice, quieter, harder to hear, urged restraint. Moments stretched into eternity. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, the vessels slowed and stopped. No shots fired, no escalation, just a silent, fragile standoff. The climax didn't come with explosions. It came with a choice. Hours later, a message was broadcast across international channels, a call for emergency negotiations. A pause, a chance, however slim, to step back from the edge. In Tehran, Layla listened, tears in her eyes. In Dubai, Ahmed closed his eyes in relief just for a moment, and on the deck of his ship, Hayes finally allowed himself to breathe. The resolution wasn't perfect. The tension didn't disappear overnight, but something shifted, because in a moment where everything could have spiraled into chaos, it didn't. And that mattered. Later, as the sun rose over the Strait of Hormuz, its golden light spilled across the water, transforming it from a battlefield into something almost peaceful. Hayes leaned against the railing, watching the horizon. He thought about control, the thing he had chased his entire life. And he realized something. Control wasn't about Arabic. Alif Arabic, Lam Arabic, Af Arabic, Wow Arabic Tet Ma'but. Not about dominance, it was about restraint, about knowing when not to act. Across the world, Layla wrote a single sentence in her journal. History is not shaped by power alone, but by the courage to choose peace when it is hardest. And in Dubai, Ahmed hugged his daughters a little tighter that night, because sometimes the biggest victories aren't the ones you see on the news. They're the ones where nothing happens, where the world holds its breath and decides to keep going.